Welcome back to Sunrise City. Well, that's what we start off our discussion today, the power sector reforms. Well, yes, you do know quite a number of things going on, but the end result is, yeah, to a lot of people, the ultimate. But Bode Sowunmi joins us this morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
We're looking at this power sector reform. I mean, today we see that how many 85,000 megawatts of electricity is what Nigeria needs to at least stabilize, according to Nasima in today's Guardian. But you've seen the reforms going on and how we're going about it. What's your perspective of all of this, especially how it currently affects the final output?
Okay, I think I'll start this way. There are a lot of figures coming out, I mean, depending on who you talk to. And when you look at it holistically, one of the things we need to realize is that as the population increases, the electricity we need also increases. So when they're talking about what is required for today, it's not necessarily what's going to be required for tomorrow. According to a figure that came out from the UNDP, we are looking at a population that will need close to, I think, 85 gigawatts by 2020, I think. And based on what they're expecting per year, they're expecting 8 to 9 gigawatts per year. As of today, we don't even have 8 gigawatts in the country.
Okay.
Now, to the real issues in terms of what is currently being done, what they have successfully...
Okay, just give us a moment. We'll be back to look at some of this. In fact, yeah, that's why we're here, but just give us a minute. We'll be back. Welcome back. We still have Bode Sowunmi here. Yes, we're going to talk about what exactly we're doing.
Okay, in terms of what has been done, or what has been attempted to have been done, is that when you have a car that got knocked, or that was in approaching knocking, you take it to a mechanic. They remove the clogs in the wheel, they look at the spokes, they blow it out. You now have a clean engine. But a clean engine is not necessarily a moving vehicle. What the government has done is to clean up the system and to create a structure for it to function effectively. The next step is for the functional process to start, which is a total different ballgame. But in terms of what has been achieved is phenomenal. In terms of what could be achieved is a different thing. It's ambitious, yes. Can it be done? Remains to be seen.
Yeah, but in terms of what has been achieved and what we currently have, and given the targets that we consistently keep setting, it does come across as though to achieve even those intermediate targets,
yes,
not even the long-term targets, it will still take us a while.
It definitely will. And
I mean, much longer than we've been told, actually.
Not necessarily, and I'll say why. See, there's something, all developments, a lot of developments is dependent on the human spirit and the human will in terms of the entrepreneurial capacities of human beings. What they have done is to put certain sections of the development of the power sector into the hands of entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs have a certain capacity to circumvent systems, to look for ways around solutions that are not necessarily, that government won't necessarily think of. For example, you tell somebody, I need you to clean up certain sections of the state. He's not going to start telling you that he hasn't gotten local government permission and all that. He's going to look for ways around it, which is not necessarily what a section or an agency of government would do. They can stop working and say they don't have social reasons. But with entrepreneurs, it's not the same thing. Now, what we have is that the generation has been given to entrepreneurs, the distribution has been given to entrepreneurs. It is now left for them and the capitalistic spirit that is within them to turn the whole system into profit. And that is where they can take a quantum leap ahead of expectations. You can't really set limitations to what an entrepreneur would do. That's the truth there.
Yeah, but if you look at in terms of the consumer aspect of it and what an entrepreneur is expected or what the consumers expect, they have no problems with the fees that the consumers have got to pay, and as a matter of fact, doubling these fees.
Yes.
But the service is not commensurate, and no recourse to the consumer in most cases. So that's where some people find it a bit odd. If you say it will take a while to provide the service, no problems. But why doesn't it take that while for the charges? The charges are just
skyrocket. I mean, at this stage, I'm a consumer myself, so I'll say this. There is a disconnect between what our entrepreneurs or the people who have been sold, what they are doing and what they are informing the public. In fact, I heard somewhere along the line that the people said that they've spent so much in getting their licenses and all that, that they are not interested in communications or marketing efforts, which can be a very big error. Because when you are doing so much or you are doing so little, and there's a communication between your stakeholders and yourself, you are going to have issues. Maybe not in the immediate, it can be in the medium term, it can be in the long term. Right now, they have not really started work. What they are simply trying to do is convert the existing systems and the existing people that they met there and make them, and turn them into something that can be workable before they now start talking about additional generation, putting in proper distribution networks, deploying advanced technologies and all that. But right now, nobody can talk to them. So, and that is going to be a problem along the line.
You know what people really don't understand, because we're trying to see if we can break it down for the average or the Nigerian out there to understand what we talk about entrepreneur. Because when the government brought in the new investors in the sector, they thought, I'm sure that these are the people you're calling the entrepreneurs. So they thought we were almost, or we're there. And they say, as it is now, you were in that hall when the vice president and others came together to say, okay, this is the way to go. They also talked about financing for these people. What is the gist that you're getting? Because now that they have come in, some areas would say, well, it has dropped, while some others would say it has actually relatively improved. Are they handicapped in handling this?
Well, perhaps handicap would not be the word. I think the word would be they have limitations. And anybody starting a new venture will have a learning curve. One of the real challenges of industrialization, and in this, which is where this thing really comes in, is financing. And the whole of the Power Investors Conference, the one you're talking about, that took place in Abuja, was primarily to assure international investors, who are the real ones that can bring in the kind of funding that they are looking forward to, that Nigeria is safe, that they are being backed by government, and that policy will support it. In other words, to encourage people to bring in their money. Even when they do bring in these funds, it's still going to take a while for them to build the proper infrastructure, set in the proper human resources that are required, and then deploy the services. What has not been done effectively was manage people's expectations in terms of what was going to happen. I mean, the turnaround time between the privatization and when people start to feel the effects. I'll give you an example. When they did the privatization for the telecoms industry, it took a while before we started getting phones. In fact, there were some false starts in the initial. The first people to give out phone lines where you could make phone was Econet, which is now Airtel at the time. But the first people to effectively deploy working networks was MTN. So, and I mean, those things were there were back and forth issues here at that time. At that time, the expectations were not too high because, I mean, any phone was good because communication systems were scarce. But and they could get away with some things, but not the same. There is a need to effectively monitor and put expectations at a proper level and educate people on how the system really works. It's an industry. They're not going to build infrastructure overnight. They're going to build infrastructure. They're going to deploy systems. They're going to use new technologies. These things don't just happen overnight.
Wow. Given your knowledge, sorry, Sulaiman, given your knowledge of the sector and also standing from the viewpoint or looking at things from the viewpoint of a consumer, just about how long, realistically, do you think it would take for Nigerians to see some major improvement in delivering electricity to them?
Well, to be honest, because I'm not a direct participant at this time in terms of it will be difficult to put certain things, but to put realistic expectations, we should be looking at 6 months to 2 years, depending on how everything works. I mean, there are a number of factors that are involved. They actually have to generate to increase the generation. The transmission network, which is being managed by Manitoba, needs to work and needs to work effectively. And then the discos don't have a problem really in distributing because it's going to be cash and carry and all that. But they must have things to distribute. They must also have a transmission backbone that is working effectively.